Alright, let's talk about this. You're probably watching this video right now thinking, Alex, what kind of clickbait title is this? You didn't actually almost die at work. Well, I kind of almost did, and here's proof right here of this crazy story that I'm about to tell you, and I will explain more later in the video. And I'm finally talking about this now because I went through my old health records and I actually found my old EKGs to back up and actually show you guys what exactly I was going through because people weren't believing me. So if you like reading EKGs, then this video is for you. So let's just start from the beginning. This was back in October 20th, 2020, like 2.5 years ago. At this time, I'm working as a nurse, a new grad nurse in the ER. And I literally could not have picked a worse time to be an ER nurse because that was when COVID was really kicking into gear. And man, working in the ER during COVID, that was the craziest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life, and I think it took off like 10 years off my lifespan because the amount of stress that I went through working in that job, I think was kind of the reason why this actually happened because I was literally starting to feel so stressed out from my job that I was actually having health problems, and this is obviously one of them. Like, I remember working in the ER during the pandemic, like we were stretched out so thin because everyone was quitting because no one wanted to work in the ER as a nurse at that time. And I had up to 10 patients to my name. 10 patients, 5 of them were critical patients and 5 of them were like psych patients. And they were all just doing crazy things, and I just couldn't handle that as a new grad nurse, or even let alone as a nurse now, I couldn't do that, honestly. I don't know how I did it, and it's amazing that I got through it without losing my license. I remember so well, it was around 8 o'clock in the morning, I was working on day shift as a nurse, and I was so happy because I'm never on day shift and I was always on night shift, and I was just so happy to be there, you know? And usually when you work in the ER during day shift, like your mornings are usually the easiest because people just generally don't want to be in the ER in the mornings, you know? Usually around the afternoons is when it gets super busy, but like again, it was 8 o'clock in the morning and we were chilling because there was only one patient in the ER. Yeah, one patient in the ER for the whole staff, and we were chilling. And I remember telling my coworkers like, oh, this patient has some blood work orders and an IV. I was like, oh, I can do it. You guys sit back, get some coffee, get breakfast. I got this, I can do this, guys. Because I'm a new grad nurse, and even I've been working for like over a year now at this point, like I still want to get more practice at IVs because I just wanted to get really good at it. I remember going to the supply cart, I opened the drawer, I got the IV start kit, I got a heat pack, I got the actual IV, and then when I stood up, like I had the weirdest feeling in my chest. It felt like my heart dropped out of my chest. That's how I had to explain it because I don't know how else to say it. And then a second later, I got super dizzy, like I was like having trouble standing up, and then my heart was just pounding through my chest, like pounding. And then I call out to my coworkers, and then immediately I fall and collapse. I'm pretty sure I hit my head on the ground really hard because I had a huge headache afterwards. And thankfully to my coworkers, they literally got up and they pulled my unconscious body onto a chair. And then like almost instantaneously, I woke back up and I regained consciousness. It was the weirdest experience because I was literally standing there looking at like my hands, and then like another instant, I was sitting in a chair surrounded by all my coworkers and the doctors and everything. I was just like, whoa, what is going on? People were handing me ice chips and water, and my other friend was taking my vitals. And that's when I started recording this video right here. So you can see my vitals. My blood pressure is 128/93. Not that bad, actually. My pulse ox is 100%. Nailed it. And my heart rate is at 197. My heart was beating 197 times per minute. So that would explain why my chest felt like it was literally beating outside my chest and why I got super lightheaded. If you work in the medical field, you probably already know what's happening right now, but if you don't, I was having an episode of SVT, also known as supraventricular tachycardia. And I like to say SVT is just a more fun version of tachycardia because your heart is just beating super fast. Usually your heart rate should be between 60 to 100. If you go past that, that's when you get into the tachycardia range. And mine was beating at 197 per minute. And as a nurse working in the ER, we get a lot of these patients, and honestly, it's not always life-threatening because usually we can break them out of it with just bearing techniques. So I remember this EMT gave me this like emptied flush, and he told me to blow in the other end and get the plunger to kind of actually extend. And it's actually really hard, and it's a really good technique to actually get someone to bear down. And I was literally blown into the sponge for literally like 20 minutes on this chair and my heart rate was not going down. And this is when I started getting a little bit worried because it wasn't going down, my heart rate. And if anything, it was going up. And I remember it hit almost 210. That was the highest I ever saw my heart rate. And my chest was literally just pounding. And as a nurse, I know that SVT can, but not commonly, it can convert to a different but more lethal rhythm, and that can cause death. And I was just literally blown into the syringe for the life of me so I can get my heart rate down, but it was just not working. I remember the EMTs that were working that day, they were parked out right in front of the ER. They weren't going anywhere because they were just waiting for calls. And they literally brought me a wheelchair. They were so nice, and I really do miss these guys. They were seriously the best. And they got me a wheelchair and they put me back of the ambulance. They took my shirt off, they put me on the EKG machine, and they got a strip. And I'm gonna put that up right here. So as you can see, I'm definitely in SVT. Each big box right there is 0.2 seconds, and there is 3 beats in 1 second, which is 5 of those boxes, and 3 times 60 seconds, that will be around 180 beats per minute, which is still really high, which is better from 200, honestly, but it's still really high. And I remember just like really bearing down, like, this needs to go away because I just wanted to feel better, you know? And then I am not joking. Look at me right now, guys. Look at me right now. I am not joking. This really happened. I'm in the ambulance right now. The doors are open. I am shirtless. I got wires hooked up to me. There's a monitor going on. It's beeping. And then my manager, my very own boss, walks into the ambulance and she's like, so, are you gonna come back into work or am I gonna have to write you for an occurrence? Like, she literally stepped into the ambulance, saw that I was having a medical emergency, and then threatened me with writing me up to the hospital if I didn't literally just rip off the wires and get back into work. It was a real eye-opening experience because, you know, at this point, I love this boss, you know? I thought she was great, and I don't know, maybe I just give the benefit of the doubt too much, and I seriously thought that, like, she was one of the nicest people I've ever met. I thought that she actually cared about me, and, you know, when I was actually in the ambulance, I thought none of this, you know, I didn't think that I was going to be in trouble because obviously I'm having a medical emergency. She will understand it. She's a human being. She gets it, but she just didn't. Like, she just saw me just as like a disposable nurse and just didn't really give a crap about me. And at that moment, I was literally like speechless. Like, I was looking at the EMTs and the EMTs were looking at each other, and I was just like, I guess you're gonna have to write me up because I literally cannot work right now. Like, but luckily, like, the doctors who work in the ER, they are so nice, and they actually do care about me. I remember the lead attendant, he came into the ambulance, he took a look at me, he said, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna be all right, we're gonna do this and that. And then as he's talking, I can feel my chest literally go right back into rhythm. Like, almost immediately like that, I felt my heart kind of drop again like I did before. And then I look on the monitor and my heart is literally back into sinus rhythm. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. And he was like, oh, I guess you're fine now, I guess. That's interesting. I had never felt that much relief in my entire life. And then after I literally stabilized myself, I had my mom pick me up from the hospital, from where I worked. I just rested at home and I just told him what happened. I then saw my primary care the next day and we did another EKG, and here's it right here. I'm gonna put it on the screen. If you wanna read this and tell me what you see on this, you know, the strip. And I just hate EKGs, man. I have relearned EKGs like 6 times in my life because every time I go to a different hospital, I have to do a whole EKG exam, and I literally study, I memorize every single one, and then I just dump it. I just forget about it because I never ever use this in my day-to-day life as a nurse. But ever since then, the last 2.5 years, I haven't had an episode like that ever again. That was just a super weird thing that happened to me that I can't even explain to it. Even my doctor can't really explain it. And that's why the EKG I expected to be normal when I did it at the primary care because I felt fine. And you know what's funny is that I was probably more likely to die from like a brain bleed from when I fell and hit my head on the ground when I passed out than the SVT converting to like a different rhythm. But, you know, it still scares me because I have seen in it practice where patients with SVT will convert into like VTAC all of a sudden, and it will freak you out. So it does happen. It can be life-threatening, but thank God it didn't happen to me, and it hasn't happened since then. But I think it was because I was just so stressed out working in the ER that my heart literally freaked out, and it was like, can't do this anymore. It was just so weird because I would have thought this would happen on an actual crazy day, you know, not on a day where I was actually kind of relaxed. I was just doing blood work like I always do, and I wasn't rushing, I wasn't running. And yeah, it just goes to show that maybe that stress that I was kind of bottling up for a really long time just kind of bursted. But since then, my heart's been great and I haven't had an episode like that ever again. But, you know, fingers crossed. And that's today's video, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this little story time with me. I have so many more of these crazy stories working as a nurse, from a personal and professional perspective. So if you like more of these story time kind of things, me talking to the camera, let me know. Or if you like more of a vlog style, I can do that as well. But let me know, guys. I love you. Thank you for watching.